you please welcome broadcaster extraordinaire Mr Tim Lane. With him, flamboyant defender, two-time premiership player, Australian Football Hall of Fame member, Carlton Hall of Fame inductee John Goold, Carlton Hall of Fame inductee and triple premiership player Ken Hall, and a former CEO and former president of the Carlton Football Club and a member of the 1968 premiership team, Mr Ian Collins.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Someone once said that if you remember the 1960s, you weren't really there. Well, over the next few minutes, we'll try and prove that wrong. Let's start with Colo, who is so well known to so many of you. And this trio were all there on that drought-breaking day in 1968. But Colo, it's hard to believe now you arrived as a wet behind-the-ears kid from Sale in 1961. What did you find at Princes Park back then?
Well, it was, not what it is today. It was semi-professional. We all had to have a job to make a living because we didn't get paid that much on the field. I remember, I think I broke the Carlton law, so I could have got rubbed out before I started, but it was a great club to come to, and with the likes of blokes like Jack Rout and Percy Bentley that were there, and people around the club, it was terrific. And we had a little bit of success to start with. A kid from the bush, I could pick my own club, and that was great. And in '62 we had a great final series, but Ken Ans was a coach, and we got knocked over by Essendon in the grand final after some very dramatic games leading up to it.
A drawn preliminary final that year against Geelong, and then a 5-point win in the replay. It was no place for faint hearts.
No, we won the first semi-final by a point, so that was nearly as bad, but we were helped by the umpire in the replay. Peter Barry had his shorts pulled by Doug Wade and he got a free kick. He'd already kicked about 5 goals, so it was very good. I was playing on the wing, so I had a very clear view of it, and I'd have to agree with Jack Irving that he made the right decision on the day.
And then there was a plunge to 10th position, Carlton's worst ever finish in 1964. How gloomy was the feeling in the place at that time?
Well, it was a centenary year, and we did perform pretty ordinary that year, although Gordon Collis won the Brownlow, so that was one positive to come out of it. But a lot of players had left after '62, the John Jameses, Graham Donaldsons, that had been the backbone of the club. And then we started to get new people on and off the field, and when people like Kevin Hall here, but also Ian Robertson and Gary Crane, and of course Jezza came through, Croswell, and they just started to come into the game, and they were the nucleus of taking us one step further than we did in '62.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very big space, I know, and there is an inclination to talk, but when you do, you make it difficult for others to hear. These are greats of the club, and we would like you to respect them with a few minutes of silence. John Ragsy Goold, one of the most colourful players of the decade, the Beau Brummel of football, he was known at those times. It all changed at Carlton in 1965 when a new man named Ronald Dale Barassi walked in the door.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting next to Percy Jones tonight, and I well recall, to sum up Barassi, he would drive from Heathmont down to St Kilda, drag Percy out of bed at 6 in the morning and make him run along the beach. And the only way Percy got to where he was because of Barassi's commitment to just drive this poor old bugger who's sitting over there next to me, and just indicative of the passion and the commitment and the standards he set for our great club. Thank God he came here.
Are there lessons from that time that you feel are translatable to Carlton circumstances today?
Yeah, I think that we all underestimate the word values, and I'm in the horse world a bit one way and another, and you go to the yearling sales at Inglis and you see a horse yearling knocked down for $2 or $3 million, and everyone runs over and congratulates the winning bidder and the agent. But there's two things they do not realise. They don't know the size of the heart of the horse, and they don't know its attitude. Now, there'll be our players here. We all know fear at some stage or other. But the true greatness at Carlton is it instills the values that creates the attitude that we're not individuals and we're accountable to our great club. And its attitude, when the horse lays its ears back 50 yards to the post, lengthens its legs and wins the game. And that's what we're on about.
Kevin Hall. In those early Barassi years, Carlton were largely a battling team, played fairly defensive, low-scoring football, but then some stars were recruited. Alex Jezelenko, 1967, Brent Croswell, 68, Brian Kekovich came and played at full forward, and there was a transformation of Carlton's look on the field and its fortunes.
You're right, Tim. I couldn't help myself but remember this bloke in the rooms used to come to the rooms for training, mind you, starched shirt, big tie, beautifully pressed suit, and we had a lot of fun hiding his clothes for him along the way. This bloke used to just cut up so rough, and anybody who touched his clothes, you could do anything but don't touch his clothes. But he was a great teammate, and we had a lot of fun together. Look, those names you mentioned, Tim, there's them, and there's also players like Ian Robertson, Brian Quirk, Gary Crane. I saw Gary here earlier.
Sid Jackson was another.
Sid Jackson was waiting there to go. He couldn't get a clearance. And of course, with Barassi being there 2 years, Robert Walls, David Mackay, we just had a fantastic array of guys that all arrived together. And I think in arriving together, we built an opportunity for this team to meld together for about 7 or 8 years. And I think that was part of the key of being able to have such a successful side because of the camaraderie and the spirit that was there. And with Barassi being a fanatical coach, just 7 years of him, we probably got a bit sick of him in the finish from Barassi, but and we had an inspirational leader in John Nichols, who was absolutely a magnificent leader of our club. And I think Barassi actually took us back to school. We used to have to go...
He thought we were dumb.
Well, when we didn't do something right on the field, he said, right, if that's what you want, we'll train and then we'll go upstairs. And the minute he said upstairs, we go, oh, not this bloody upstairs again. But this was all about teaching us about what you do when you've got the ball, what you do when you haven't got the ball, what you do when nobody's got the ball. And we learnt that, and it was just a little bit of, I think, Len Smith coming out. And I think that was the thing that really educated us about being able to support each other on the footy field, because lots of times, I mean, Colo, Johnny and I all played in the back line, and we were chatterboxes and we all supported each other and blocked and shepherded and tackled. There's lots of things you can do in football without having the ball, and it's supporting your teammates. And I think we did that very, very well in that era.
And of course, it all came together on that drought-breaking day in 1968. The Blues hadn't won a flag since 1947. Now, so many of the subsequent premierships were spectacularly won that this low-scoring struggle in the win tends to get forgotten. Let me hear from you, and you were all there, a recollection or two about it. Kev, while you're hot.
Well, I think I might have said to you, it might be the wrong person to ask about it, because I got king hit by Charlie Payne 5 minutes into the game. I can't remember playing the first half, but went in at half-time and I'm jumping all over Serge Silvani and said, we've won. And he said, come with me, we're going to see the doctor, it's only half-time. So I don't really know much about it, except just lying there waiting to come to, and then sat on the bench for the rest of the game.
Hope you enjoyed the celebrations.
It was good. I was clear by then.
What about you, Colo?
Well, you know, grand finals are something that you even get to play in them is fantastic. To win a grand final is even better. And to win by kicking less goals than the opposition, I think we put the icing on the cake. But it was a very hot day, extremely windy day, and, you know, we had to work from start to finish to get up and win. But it was a great feeling to get the monkey off our back, and I think that was a catalyst to break the ice, and it led to a lot of grand finals and premierships in the next few years, which I think was fantastic.
And Rosie?
It's very simple. Fear of failure to face your supporters, your committee, George Harris, and our bloody coach. No way we're going to lose.
Tim, can I just say something about the appointment of, or the election of George Harris and his team? Look, I think every player that played under that era respected George Harris, used to call him a prick every now and again for the things he said. When we'd have a bad loss, he'd stand up and he'd give us rubbish in front of everyone, and that was George, and it was his tactics. But George Harris, when he arrived, and with Gordon Newton and Graham Emanuel, Kevin McEncroe, were four of the ringleaders in going to get Ron Barassi. And I'd have to say that was just a genius stroke. It was something that everybody thought couldn't happen. Barassi even said no, and George wouldn't take no for an answer. He had, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours on the phone with him and finally convinced Barassi he should come to Carlton. And that's probably the catalyst in us having such a good team. Might have been a bit lucky with some of those players that walked in to the club, like Ian Robinson and Robbie Walls, who was a local player. So, you know, we had a fantastic influx of good players, which probably helped, but he was the man that really made it for us, Ron Barassi and George Harris.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1960s, the Carlton Football Club was transformed. For the next 25 years, the premierships kept coming, the excitement kept coming for Carlton supporters. Please thank 3 giants of that era, Ian Collins, Kevin Hall and John Goold.